supposed to go down that?
Yeah.
It's time for another review from the Trail Bike Field Test. Up next, we have the Revel Rascal. It's also called the Revel Rascal SL because this new version is 200 grams lighter than the previous one, at least as far as the frame goes. Nice prickly pear green, has 130 millimeters of rear travel, 140 millimeter fork, and as shown, it's priced at $6,899 US dollars. But let's start things off and talk about how this thing climbs.
We thought this was a very impressive climber. The suspension is supportive. You still get a good amount of traction. So under load, the suspension isn't bobbing, but then when you do encounter a bump, it still remains active and just keeps that rear wheel hugging to the ground. The front end, yeah, sort of a medium height. Cranks, never had any issues really with the suspension bobbing, having crank strikes. The seat tube angle is on maybe the slacker side compared to some of the other bikes on test. But it does get steeper for the larger sizes. This one is at 76 degrees. Chainstays are on the medium short side, sort of what you expect for a trail bike of this size. Very similar to the other ones here on test at 435. It would be maybe nicer for taller riders. I think they could appreciate the chainstays getting a touch longer, just so they're not looping out on those climbs. But Mike, what did you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, the way, again, it's got that nice active sensation when you're pedaling, but not active in a mushy way, just absorbing the bumps, but you can still stand up and sprint. So yeah, really impressive suspension layout. And yeah, I'm with you. A little bit steeper seat tube angle would be appreciated, but it wasn't too bad. You know, it kind of falls into your contemporary trail bike geometry. I scooted the seat forward a little bit and it worked for me. But yeah, if I had to nitpick, and that really, I'd say is a nitpick, just a little steeper seat angle, but the overall position felt fine. Ours has a 50 millimeter stem. You could toss a 40 on there and get a little bit more upright. But overall, I'd say out of all the bikes on test, it's one of the most impressive ride feels in general. We'll get to the descending really soon, but I think just the way that this thing absorbs the bumps, again, it only has 130 millimeters of travel, but it just does a really nice job with what it has, and that's via the Canfield CBF suspension design. Good acronym, but it works well. Dual link layout, just super consistent.
Yeah, consistent would be a good way to describe this thing. It was easy to predict when you hammer down on the pedals, and it just propels you forward. And the climb switch is also easy to reach, which on these bikes we still use, you know, commuting, fire road climbs, all that stuff. So it is important to have that within arm's reach.
Yeah, it's a great climber. Time to talk about the descending. I thought it was a great descender too. I mean, where we are, there's not a lot of huge, super long extended descents here, but there's some chunky bits and kind of like short, punchy downhills, I guess. And this thing, again, one of the more comfortable bikes on test, just because of the way that suspension works. You don't feel like there's no harsh bottom. It has a hydraulic bottom out on the shock, but you can really push into it and kind of make the most out of that travel. It's not standing up too high, just kind of has that sweet spot. And I really like that. I thought it was super easy to toss around. It's on the, I guess, maybe steeper side. Steep's probably almost too harsh a word, but 65.5 degrees. So if you're really going into some gnarly terrain, it could feel a little pointy, but for more general trail riding, I think they kind of found a good happy medium.
Yeah, I found that the suspension and the geometry, especially for around here, just always encourage you to pedal, sprint, get up to speed, have fun, and hit things that were in front of you with, you know, the most energy. Just gap little pockets of roots, or jump into turns fast and easy to manual, and then still at the same time in some of the rougher sections, the bike stays very composed. And yeah, definitely appreciate that hydraulic bottom out. Personally, I would toss another volume spacer in the shock, but something easy that you can tune. For stopping, you know, we did have some debate over the brakes. We think those are excellent, but an easy upgrade would be moving to metallic pads, maybe larger rotor, if you're doing longer descents.
Yeah, so it's a SRAM motive brake. So they're kind of designed to be almost a code replacement, but they're not quite code power. So if you're charging super hard, you may want something more powerful, but again, different brake pads, different rotors could probably bridge that gap. But for general trail riding, I think they're appropriate, but if you want to get a little bit, you know, bigger riders too, and depending on your weight too, but weight and terrain will depend on what you want to do with those brakes. But overall, I thought the spec was good.
Okay, we'll get into what it's like to live with. I mean, it's a very clean looking frame. I love how the links are actually painted to match the frame. There are no adjustments on the frame. which is maybe a debatable topic these days. We see something like the Trek Fuel EX has a bunch of adjustments. This one has none in terms of geometry or suspension changes. We mentioned the chainstay length being the same for all sizes, but clean cable routing. We've got lots of different guards and mud flaps and stuff. So this is a very quiet bike descending, which is nice to see, or nice to hear, I guess. With the ISCG tabs on there, you could add a bash guard, 2 water bottle mounts, one on the top side of the down tube, one underneath, an accessory mount. So if you're the adventuring type, lots of room to put on extra gear there. And then the frame comes with a lifetime warranty as well.
Yeah, and there's no in-frame storage. We kind of, on this trip, we kind of decided it didn't matter as much just these days. It feels like it was a big topic, like it's got in-frame storage, yes, but as the years have gone by, it's kind of almost doesn't matter as much. We'll have to open that up for debate for everybody else, but if you do love in-frame storage, you won't find that here, but it does have accessory mounts, so you should be able to strap all your stuff to this bike. You experienced the pivot came loose a couple times, but that could just be kind of the new bike breaking in period. Might need some Loctite on there.
Yeah, it'd be pretty easy to throw some Loctite on those pivots. And I guess I could mention that I have reviewed the standard build of this frame, just the regular Rascal. And during that long-term review, I never had any issue with the pivots.
Speaking of the previous version, that brings us to value. So as this bike sits, $6,899. So definitely a higher end build, pretty expensive, but a really nice build for the price. I mean, you get DT Swiss carbon wheels, SRAM EXO transmission drivetrain, the carbon bar. It doesn't really need anything else. I'd say there's nothing I'd upgrade on this really.
No, it's one of the lighter bikes on test here.
It's like 30 pounds. But if you wanted to save some money and you wanted this bike, they still have some of the previous version available. I'm not sure for how long, but you could save a decent amount of money. They are 200 grams heavier for the frame, but geometry is almost identical. It is identical.
It is identical.
So you have this frame just a little bit heavier, but a good amount cheaper if that's the way you want to go. So that's the way to get this, and the best value version of this is the previous version. Yeah, and overall compared to the other bikes, I'd say it offers a pretty good value.
Yeah, totally. One of the more expensive ones, but you know, if you're getting into that carbon wheel, carbon bar, higher end drivetrain, then yeah, this build kit does offer good value for sure. Brings us to, yeah, kind of a wrap up. We've got pros and cons. Pros, this is a pretty versatile bike. You know, the geometry positions itself sort of in the middle of that shorter travel trail bike segment. We also found that the pedaling performance uphill and the comfort downhill on this bike was just pretty all-time, pretty exceptional.
Yeah.
I don't think we had any major complaints, and we both came to the same agreements.
Yeah, and that brings us to cons, and we kind of struggled. I would say there's almost no cons. I mean, if you're looking for a good trail bike that does a little bit of everything, reasonable weight, just super fun, and a wide variety of terrain, that's this bike. So for cons, it really depends if you have your heart set on something like in-frame storage. There's no in-frame storage, so if that's something you want, that's a con. If you don't want it, it's not a con.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, maybe the seat tube angle might be on the slacker side for some people, but it's not even that slack. So it's kind of, we're stretching, you know, grabbing at straws for cons. And that's kind of about it. There's nothing really,
Yeah.
I guess, you know, same with the chainstay. There's no adjustments. So if you want, so there we go. We can break the cons down to really brief. If you want a lot of adjustments, this bike doesn't have it. If you want in-frame storage, this bike doesn't have it. If you want size-specific chainstays, this bike doesn't have it. But if none of those matter to you, it's great. It's such a good bike. And yeah, the overall thing is that there's not that many real cons. It just really depends on what you're looking for. Let's wrap this review up and decide who exactly the Revel Rascal is for.
Mike, I think you said it best. This is for somebody who wants to ride all day and doesn't want to get beaten up by a stiff frame or harsh suspension. We were really impressed with that traction, and this was the bike that I picked for my long ride. And now actually thinking back about it, I think this was maybe the right choice over the Spider.
Yeah, thinking back, I probably would have picked this bike too for that ride. Just a little bit extra comfort compared to the Spider. So yeah, they've done a great job. Super impressed. I hadn't ridden this bike before. You had, and you said good things. And I definitely believe you now. That's the Revel Rascal. Hope you enjoyed that, and be sure to check out all the other field test content. We've got a bunch of episodes and full reviews on the way.